Okay, here we go. Oh my goodness. Time for the E3 roundup. I'm not going to talk about the PC gamer conference for a few reasons. Biggest reason is I'm actually recording it during the PC gamer conference right now, so I'm obviously not watching. But aside from that, I am going to be talking about every single one of the conferences. I'm going to be grading each one. And I'm just making this all one big video, as you can probably see from the time code. I'm gonna leave annotations up through the whole thing. If you ever want to go to any part of, just watch that, about that particular conference, just click the annotation, click a time code in the description. That's really all you got to do, and you're there, and you can hear my opinions and my thoughts, and me kind of just, going over what they talked about in each uh, conference. And I'd like to say I kept a pretty optimistic disposition about about all of E3. Um, I definitely can see where people were coming from in certain areas, but I did have my own personal opinions about a couple things here and there. So let's go in order. Let's start with Bethesda. Bethesda, they really only showed 4 games. Okay. Granted, they only needed to show 4 games. First, they showed Doom. What can you say? It was Doom. It was totally Doom, but new and modern and awesome. Doom, kill things, demons from hell, Doom. That's what it was. It had really awesome multiplayer. The demos look cool that they showed for the gameplay. They showed actual gameplay, which was great. I mean, they had a lot of time allotted to Doom, so they had a lot to cover and a lot to show. And they also talked about a map editor and whatnot. That was all pretty cool. And yeah, so it's Doom. Doom is finally back, and it looks great. It looks awesome. I'm personally not into Doom a lot, but for those who are, I know, or I can at least, it very much looks like it's going to be everything you guys have been asking for. And if not, then either the game is going to have technical issues, or probably you're just stuck in nostalgia, because it looked like Doom. I mean, I don't really know what else there is to say about it. It's not like Doom had a deep and incredibly deep narrative to it, so it's like, don't expect that. Um, then they briefly talked about this MMO called Battle Cry. Very, very brief. It's kind of like, I don't even know what to compare it to. It was kind of Chivalry-esque meets Team Fortress 2, is what I suppose you could say. Um, it looked a little bit interesting. They were talking about an open beta popping up for it. It's totally not at all my thing, but if you're a person who's into MMOs of that kind, then yeah, I guess take a look at it. It very much reminded me of TF2, except for with swords and stuff like that. Um, and then they talked about Dishonored. Dishonored Definitive Edition was announced for PS4 and Xbox One. Kind of pointless. And then what was a little less pointless was Dishonored 2, which we all actually heard about the day before, but that aside, Dishonored 2 is coming. The only thing that really irritated me about Dishonored 2 is they didn't show gameplay. You got to show gameplay, guys. Come on, that's important. And trust me, Bethesda was not the only offender of this. And granted, I can see in instances why they won't show gameplay, but I want to say Dishonored 2 was like, it's coming out this. Is it coming out this year? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't coming out to 2016. If it's coming out to 2016, I can understand why. But if it's this year, and there were some offenders of this in other conferences, if it's this year, there should always be gameplay shown. Then they had Fallout 4. Okay, the bomb. They announced it a few days ago, a few days before E3. Everyone exploded. They showed Fallout 4. Fallout 4 is Fallout 4. They showed a trailer. They showed kind of, a little bit of gameplay and stuff like that, character modeling, whatnot. Uh, it's totally Bethesda Elder Scrolls meets slash Fallout graphics, where it's like awkward, but yet like it's meant to be realistic, but it looks kind of awkward, which I honestly don't mind it a lot. I really don't. I know people that are foreign to it though are probably very weirded out by it, and I can see why, because it looks awkward. It really does. That aside, the environments look very pretty. There's a lot more color to it. Um, it has a little bit more of a, I mean, I don't want to say cartoony, but I think it's mostly just the color, the much larger amounts of color as opposed to Fallout 3 that made it look a little bit like that. Um, and on top of that, they also announced a few extra things. They announced this mobile game, which looked pretty interesting, but it's for iPhone only at the moment. I think it might come to Android later. That was okay. Uh, but the real one that I got actually pretty excited about was this. Oh, and I should say that app game. It was like a vault management where you get to basically, a little strategy game where you get to control your vault and your vault members and all that stuff, and it was cute. But the one that I was really excited was it was like this town builder where you actually get to build your own town and build all the homes within from the ground up and defend it and stuff like that. But it's like it was basically a better version of the Hearthome DLC from Skyrim, like a much better version, and it's just in Fallout 4. That is the thing I'm most excited for because Hearthome was actually a really cool concept for Skyrim. It just was very bare bones. Um, and expounding upon that, I think, is actually a very interesting idea. And personally, not being a big Fallout fan, but I love the Elder Scrolls, but not being a huge Fallout fan, that is the thing I'm most excited for, and possibly the reason I might actually go and get the game. Um, and the big other bomb that they announced was Fallout 4 is this year, October. But that was all Bethesda had. Now, I say all, but Doom and Fallout's really all they needed. Granted, Bethesda isn't as big of a company as, like, let's say Ubisoft or EA or heck even Square Enix. They don't have as many divisions and as many teams devoted to working on games, so I can understand that. And what they showed was good. I really feel like aside from Fallout and Doom, they missed the mark. Dishonored, all the whole Dishonored stuff was it wasn't enough. And Battlecry, I mean, I can't really speak for Battlecry because I'm not into that stuff, but I mean, Battlecry was okay, but it felt like it was Doom, Fallout, and then the filler. That's what the conference felt like. Fallout on my tongue. I still think I think they did a really good job. The guy presenting Fallout, he was the designer, like Todd Howard or whatever. He did a good job. I really enjoyed him. I thought he was, very much into his game and very excited to show people, the whole deal. And I thought he did good. I really did. And he helped sell this game to me that honestly I wasn't really looking forward to because I don't care for 3 or New Vegas that much. It's just not my thing. It's just not. The bland environments turn me off from the game. But I will admit that they are very good games, regardless of how I personally feel about them. But yeah, Fallout 4. I think I'm actually going to get it. I enjoyed what they showed, and yeah, they might have sold me on it. Not so much on Doom, but mostly just because I've got enough shooters in my life already. I don't need Doom. I would give Bethesda, like, it is one of those instances where it's like what they showed was great, but gosh, I felt like I got more than enough of what of the 2 things they showed me. And honestly, I think it really boils down to, did Bethesda really need a full-fledged hour and a half conference for this? Probably not. That aside, I think I'll give I'll give them an 8 out of 10. It was solid, and they showed what they need to show, and they showed it well. At least the 2 games they showed well. Dishonored really was kind of glazed over, and then there was Battlecry, and that was it. But I think it gets like an 8 out of 10. I can't really justify giving it any higher than that, but I think 8 out of 10 is about right. So that's Bethesda. Now let's move on to the first conference of Monday. Boy, Monday was a magical day. And let's get started with Microsoft, who actually did awesome. Well, in their own way. There's some beefs I had with their conference, but we'll get into that as we go. Started out with what else? Halo 5. Of course they did that. They showed some gameplay of it. That was cool. It's Halo. I don't really see what was I didn't really see how, it differed from other Halo titles. I mean, it's Halo. That's all that you really need to know about it. It looks like Halo. It plays like Halo. It's Halo. I mean, that's it. I mean, good props to them for actually showing some gameplay too, though, because I think every game should, show that. But the thing that was a little bit more intriguing about that is they also had this multiplayer version called Warzone. It was 12v12, Halo style. That actually seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. I'd much rather play full scale war in a Halo game than I would in Battlefield. I don't know. That's me, but that just seems. I mean, granted, Battlefield's still a lot bigger, or is it? I can't even remember how the player count for Battlefield, but all out war with Halo seems like a lot of fun, and that very much intrigues me. Then Bethesda came back on. Todd Howard, he basically showed the same exact beginning stuff he showed for Fallout 4, but then he announced two things that were kind of a big deal with Fallout. Um, well, the first one not as much because of a later announcement that kind of made this moot anyway, for a lot of people anyway, not for everybody. But he said Fallout 3 is bundled with the Xbox One version of Fallout 4. Awesome. I was probably going to get Fallout 4 for my Xbox One anyway, just so I could give it something to do. And then they said, oh yeah, also you get mods. On Fallout 4, all PC mods work with it. That was big. That's a big deal because mods are really the only reason everyone's like, don't play Elder Scrolls or Fallout on console. Stupid. Just play PC mods, Same with GTA, stuff like that. It's like, that's a big deal. They finally are getting PC mods to console. I don't know exactly how they're going to integrate that, but it's a big thing for gamers. Not so much for me. I'm not huge into mods unless they make the game look prettier. I'm not really into, running around with, smacking people with a dildo or whatever mod you have in whatever game. I'm not really as much into that. But as far as mods that make the game look prettier and make it run better and stuff like that, I am okay with that. And that does excite me a lot. I would love to be able to play a Fallout and Elder Scrolls game on a console with better textures and stuff like that modded into it. That does excite me. Granted, the other question is are the consoles going to be powerful enough to handle some of those kinds of mods? But that'll come later. Then I don't really have the exact order down, by the way. I should just say that because I'm kind of going off of the roundup, and I don't remember the exact orders. I kind of remember what was in the first and last halves of the conference, but I am kind of just going off this roundup list I have here. But they announced something pretty big, almost very early on in the conference. Big for everyone that really isn't me, and I'll say why in a second. But they announced backwards compatibility for the Xbox One. Now, don't freak out yet because they only announced it for like 20 titles to start. That list is going to grow, but Xbox 360 games are going to start working on Xbox One. That is a big deal for people who owned the 360. For people who didn't, that means literally nothing because I hate to say it, but there's a damn good reason I never bought a 360, and that's because it had nothing to offer me that the PS3 didn't already have. And I know pretty much anyone who had a PS3 or PC during that generation feels the exact same way. Because Xbox 360, granted, it had better like technical things than the PS3, like as far as like online went, and it, the live system, while you had to pay for it, yeah, it was better, stuff like that. But that doesn't matter anymore. That's completely moot now. Now it just comes down to the game selection, and to be fair, Xbox 360 seriously lacked with exclusives. Like it had Halo, Gears of War, Viva Pinata, Kinect, Forza, and what else? I said Gears of War, Fable. Like that was it, and it was just Fable 3 too. It's like that was all the Xbox had. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple other gems in there. People are like, you forgot this one, you freaking idiot. I'm sorry, you compare that to the PlayStation 3's list of exclusives, and it's seriously lacking. Like, it's bad. I'm sorry. It's there. That was the reason I never bought a 360. And for me, okay, that's cool. Now I can go and get Fable 3. And I don't need Halo because I have the Master Chief Collection. I can get not Viva Pinata because we'll get into that later. I I'm not going to use it. But to the people that are, that had the 360, that's great for you. And that is a big thing. That is going to help Xbox One sell quite a bit. Then they showed Forza Motorsport 6. They did not show gameplay. They just showed a scripted cutscene. They brought this like Ford GT down from the ceiling, and that was pretty because the car is gorgeous. It's the only Ford car I like personally. It's Forza. It's beautiful car racing game. Great graphics. That's what you can expect. Track racer. The end. That's it's Forza. It's another Forza game. Personally, I'm actually going to go back to Horizon, the most recent one that came out, because it's going to be cheaper. Because a game like that, I just cannot in any way justify paying full price for. Then Ubisoft came out. No, this is okay. Again, this isn't in the exact order. Ubisoft, they had their little time to shine. They showed 2 Tom Clancy games. The Division, no gameplay whatsoever. I'm sure they were saving that for their own conference, but no gameplay, and in no way did it give me anything that the last time they showed the Division gave me. So it's like, okay, skip that. Rainbow Six Siege. I guess the Division had like a beta thing that Xbox gets exclusive. That's cool. Rainbow Six Siege, they didn't really show much with that either. The big thing though is that it also includes the Rainbow Six Vegas games. That was kind of the biggest thing about that. And then let's see. There's going to be a couple things I missed. Let me see. New gameplay. Was it Gigantic? I don't even remember catching that. I don't even know what Gigantic is. I think it was like an MMO or like a MOBA or something like that. And I was just like, I glazed over that. Sorry. If you know what it is, I apologize. They showed off a bunch of indie games, and this actually was a real actual high point of the show. That's usually Sony's big thing is indie games, but Xbox, they showed off one that was really cool. There was actually a couple I was interested in. One called Ashen that had me interested because it was very atmospheric, and I'm very much into games like that. They had another one about something about eyes. I can't remember exactly what it went, how it went. I kind of glazed over that one. But they had the big one, which was called Cuphead, and everyone freaked out over that, and for good reason, because it had one thing that we have never seen in a game before. Its art style was based off of like a 1930s and 40s cartoon, like seriously, the old black and white Mickey Mouse or Popeye or Felix the Cat, things like that. It was like, whoa, we have never seen this before in a video game, and it's like a beat 'em up game. It was really cool. I was like, yeah, this looks awesome. I want this game now. Like, that is a game I'm definitely getting. That was really cool. And then the DayZ creator came on, and suddenly bad things happened. It wasn't terribly bad, but it was briefly not good. First of all, DayZ sucks. I'm sorry, it sucks. The creator, he freaking abandoned his own game, obviously. So, because of how bad it sucks, I guess. And because people wouldn't support it because it sucked, like he was bitter about it. And then he's making this new game called Ion, which I don't even want to touch because he's putting it in early access, which is a bad thing. Early access is bad, and Xbox is promoting it. That was bad. Glad they didn't linger on that for very long. Then they went over to Tomb Raider. They showed sort of gameplay. Like, I couldn't really tell. Like, it felt like there was gameplay elements because they had the button prompts come up, but for the most part it felt like just scripted. That might be exactly how the game is. It felt a little bit more so than the Tomb Raider reboot that came out 2 years ago. But I'm excited for it. It's going to be Tomb Raider. It's going to be, Girl Uncharted, which isn't a bad thing. It's more of that gameplay. It's fun. It's going to be good. I'm gonna enjoy that. They showed more stuff for Fable Legends. Wasn't too interested in that. And then before I get to the last thing that they showed, there were some other things that were newly announced. This is most of the newly announced stuff. So early in the conference, they had this game called Recore, and it's a game that's made by was it Keiji Inafune and then some of the former developers from Retro Studios. That alone makes me go, wow, this is cool. Problem was, again, they didn't show gameplay. They showed the concept of it, but they didn't show gameplay. The trailer was cool. It was interesting. It's got me intrigued, but I cannot go and say, oh yeah, this is a game for me until I see gameplay. They also talked about Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2. I mean, it's going to be solid. Garden Warfare 1 was solid, so it'll probably be pretty good. Along with that this whole EA Access thing, which I'm going to say, no, 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 no. Don't buy into that. That's bad because it was like well, it's only $5 a month, which is actually the same amount you're paying for your Xbox Live subscription. So you're literally doubling your Live subscription for just free EA games. Don't do that. Don't buy into that. It's not worth it. It really isn't. And then there was a cinematic trailer for Dark Souls 3. Again, no gameplay, but we don't need gameplay for Dark Souls 3 because it's Dark Souls. It's not hard to figure out. It's just, I mean, the only thing I would want to see in the gameplay is the graphics of this one, because I mean, now that this one's not going to be held back by last gen, it's probably going to look way better than Dark Souls 2. It'll probably be actually up there with Bloodborne, considering that's a Souls game, and anyone who says it isn't is just lying to themselves. It's a Souls game. I mean, it has differences, but it's a Souls game. And it's not an Xbox One exclusive, by the way. No, they just showed it. Then Rare came on, and this was actually my favorite part of the whole show. They didn't have to announce Kinect stuff. They didn't have to do anything with Kinect. They did Rare Replay. This is the thing that is going to make me play my Xbox One a ton. 30th anniversary, 30 games from the past 30 years, all packed into one disc. This includes Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, GoldenEye 007, Blast Corps, Perfect Dark, Battletoads, Viva Pinata, which I had mentioned earlier with the backwards compatibility. Don't need to get it now for 360 because it's going to be on Xbox One. I'm buying this fast. This is 30 of the best Rare games who have had, like, let's face it, I mean, granted, they're not what they used to be, but their history is undeniable, and I would love to have those games again. Oh my gosh. Literally, the N64 would not have been near the console it was without the Rare library. I mean, oh my gosh. Yes, please. Gimme. And then they announced a new IP. It was like a multiplayer game, where you can play with players online, and it's all pirate themed. Didn't really show much more than that. They showed you kind of walking around an island, getting on a boat, shooting at other pirate ships. That was it. Simple. It had the whole Rare kind of graphics where it was a bit cartoony and almost cel shaded a little bit. Pretty graphics. Looks like a fun game. I could get into that. I could. And then the last thing, I'm trying to think. Was that the last? Oh, no, that was not the last thing. Okay, they also did a little bit of peripheral stuff, aside from the EA Access. They talked about Xbox One's Elite controller, and I'm just going to say this right now. So, I know people are, like, obsessed with the 360 controller. This is the Xbox One controller. I know people are obsessed with the 360 controller, and they say, Xbox One controller sucks. Okay, maybe it's not as comfortable as the 360, but to go out and make an Elite controller that has button mapping, okay, that's a good idea. That's what this is it allows you to change the buttons, and it's got button mapping and all that stuff, and it's all a super customizable controller. That's cool. Don't make it $150. Yeah, it's $150. That's literally half the price of the Xbox One right now. I think it is. Most Xbox Ones I've seen lately are $300 now. That's ridiculous. $150, no thank you. I could go buy 2 full-priced games and then some for that. This isn't that bad. Sorry, it's just not. That's a little bit ridiculous. I mean, if you have the money, sure, but I cannot in any way ever see a casual gamer going and doing that. Let's see. They had this early access. They talked more about early access. They said they were teaming up with Valve VR for the whole Valve virtual reality headset. That was cool. This was awesome, though, and everyone is still freaking out about this, and probably will be for a while, was their HoloLens presentation. Microsoft HoloLens. You put on the glasses. I bumped my mic. You put on the glasses, and you can see holograms. They showed this with Minecraft. It's Minecraft. Everyone's like, Minecraft, who cares? And then he gets up, and he's like, well, we equipped the camera with the HoloLens, and he starts playing the game on the wall over here, and it's like I can see the game on my screen on the wall. And they're like, okay, so you could put your TV anywhere. I guess that's sort of cool. And then he goes, oh, but watch this. Build world, and there was this table in the center of the stage, and up goes the Minecraft, like the Minecraft world, just now, not the whole thing. No. But it was like a section of it, like a even section of that fit in the table that he could manipulate. He could move around and go to different areas and stuff like that. But the reason he was in this specific section is because there was this girl playing on her iPad over here, or on her tablet, or I don't know if it was an iPad, just some sort of tablet playing over here, and he could watch her. And he could check all layers of the map. He could look into buildings, into the hologram, see details like that and stuff like that. Oh my gosh. Two things come to mind. One, well, first of all, the presentation was amazing. But then there was two things. One good, one bad. Good thing. What can they possibly do with this now? Like, holy crap, the levels they could take this to. Can you imagine all the different games that they could manipulate with this kind of technology? Dude, could you imagine freaking Pokemon on this? That would be the best thing ever. But then the bad. And it's not necessarily bad. It was just they didn't show enough. What are the actual applications of it? Because there was only two things he could really do. He could look and observe and tell her about things. And he could like mark things. I mean, he could also like drop lightning from the sky and stuff like that. He could do little things, but as far as actual gaming experience for his end, that's not. I don't know. Not that it's not intuitive. It's just not exciting. It seems like something. It seems like it wouldn't really be the thing that everyone would want to do. Like after the novelty wore off of the coolness of it, would you always want to be the person who's just standing over and watching people play? That's really the one thing that I had about it. But, that could not be the only thing. That's just what they showed. And honestly, the technology was freaking sweet. Oh my gosh. Go check that out if you haven't already. That was cool. Another highlight of the whole conference. And then last but not least, Gears of War. First of all, they're remastering Gears of War, the first ones for the Xbox 360 onto Xbox One. Again, there goes the need for that backwards compatibility for me. But then they showed Gears of War 4, which was actually interesting because it didn't at all look like a Gears of War game. Like, it had the over-the-shoulder third-person thing going on, but aside from that, the guys didn't look as beefy. Or the guy that didn't look as beefy. The setting was completely different. Like, it didn't actually seem as much like a Gears of War game, but it seemed more interesting as a result. To me, anyway. I don't know. Gears of War 4, man. That's a good way to end the conference for Microsoft. It's a big IP for them. And all I can say left is where the hell was Call of Duty? That was strange. Going through an entire Microsoft conference with no Call of Duty was so surreal because that has not happened in like 10 years. I'm not complaining though. Microsoft did good. My biggest thing, again, they really had a problem showing gameplay. They showed a lot of trailers for things. They weren't too bad at it. There are worse offenders. In fact, there was one of the ones for Tuesday was way worse. But they could have done better at showing gameplay. Overall, though, I'd give Microsoft a solid B+. I would give them a B+. I think they did really well at making people want to get an Xbox. Like, at the end, I was like, man, I need to get an Xbox. Everyone was saying that. And on top of that, most of the games they announced or talked about are 2015. That's good. In the next 6 months. That's awesome. And now I can finally dust off my Xbox because literally all I've played on it is Ori and the Blind Forest and Sunset Overdrive. And I have Master Chief Collection, and I don't know what else to get for it. Because I have all the rest on my PS4. But now I actually have a reason to get it. Or get stuff for it. And that's good. Good job, Microsoft. You did well. And yeah, I think they did a great job at selling the console. I really think they did a great job. They made people want it. And they didn't show a lot of bullcrap either. They really didn't. The only thing that was stupid was the early access, but it was very brief. And again, the fact that they lacked gameplay, and quite a few things was a little bit irritating, but other than that, um, Microsoft did good. Then we move on to, oh boy, the conference that I did actually intentionally skip, but went and watched at least mostly in sections later. I got the gist of it from only watching 30-minute segments. Trust me, you'll know why. So right from the get-go, EA, Mass Effect 4, the game we already knew was coming. CG trailer only. Okay, that's cool. I'm not into Mass Effect, but for the people that are, awesome, great, you're getting Mass Effect 4. Then they showed Need for Speed with gameplay, and it looked pretty. Granted, I think Need for Speed is a very much lesser kind of racer. It falls short to Forza, Gran Turismo, and games like that in the track aspect, and it falls short to Burnout and Midnight Club in the street racing aspect. But hey, it's still Need for Speed, and it's a big IP. And for those who like those games, awesome. Then they jumped into Star Wars: The Old Republic, which is their not-so-great MMO that people don't really talk about. With a new expansion, people didn't really care. Then they talked about, and this was nice. They also talked about this like mobile collectible card game for Star Wars called Galaxy of Heroes or something like that. I think that was actually at that point. That might have actually been later, but I think it was right after the Old Republic. But then they showed the best part of the whole conference, Unravel. It's a little puzzle platformer from this kind of indie developer. I mean, it's obviously published by EA. And it was adorable. It was like a little yarn game, and he's swinging through environments with his yarn, and he's literally made out of yarn. And the environments, they literally looked photorealistic, like they had actually used photos as the backgrounds, and in a very intuitive way. And it was cool, and everybody wanted to see it. And the developer came on, and he was adorable because he was so into his game and so passionate about it. And it was like that was like one of the most heartwarming moments of all of E3. It was great. I mean, if you can take anything away from what happened at this EA conference, take that away, because I think that was the best part of the conference, and of the EA conference, and one of the best parts of all of E3. That was great. Then they tanked hard. And I don't just mean, they didn't just fall downhill. They freaking dive bombed. They bring out this like this guy wearing a suit of like one of the zombies from Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, and it was really awkward because he was doing all this like, wiping off the shoulder, I'm dancing, everyone get pumped up, and everyone was just like, what the hell are you doing? Like, it was awkward as heck, and it was for Garden Warfare 2. Yeah, that Microsoft did it better. They did a better presentation for it. And then it got worse, because then they showed off this like Despicable Me app game. Like, what was that even doing in this conference? That is not even something that shouldn't even be at E3. Like, come on. That's so much that's like a licensed thing. That gets a trailer on TV for a week. Come on. Really? And then they went into sports, which, okay, I understand. EA Sports is what made EA. The EA Games division probably wouldn't even be here if it weren't for the EA Sports aspect. But here's the thing, okay? But I'm gonna break it to you, EA, about your sports games, okay? They come out every year, okay? And they don't change. The graphics slightly improve. The rosters change based on the real-life rosters from that sport. They slightly improve the physics, okay? That much can be talked about enough to an adequate amount in 5 minutes. You don't need to spend I don't even know if it was 45 minutes. It felt like 45 minutes. 45 freaking minutes on sports. That was so unnecessary. Holy crap. NHL, NBA Live, FIFA. NBA Live's already in a bad place anyway. I get FIFA and Madden. Those are their big ones. But come on. Golly. Like, that was just bad. And even the people that are interested in sports, I know, were just like, this whole time. That was all they came for. But come on, you could have explained that in like 5-10 minutes tops. You did not need to spend that much time on it. I don't care. And I actually like sports games, okay? I'm into sports games. I like Madden. I'm not a person who buys it every year because I think paying $60 every year for sports games that just keep cycling through, that's a waste of my money. I really only feel that that's necessary for people who that's mostly just what they play. And that's not me because I mean, I love sports games, but that's not all I play. Not even close. Um so doesn't justify it for me, but it's like me, I'm just like this is ridiculous. I love sports and I'm not interested in this. Come on. Uh, and then this was another disappointment, and this one kind of pissed me off. Actually, there was two things that pissed me off about this conference, and this one didn't as much as the second one. And actually, okay, I'll get into the other one in a second, but this one was irritating for a lot of people. Okay, what is the things that we wanted to see most out of the EA conference? We wanted to see Mass Effect, Mirror's Edge, and Star Wars Battlefront. That was the general consensus. Mirror's Edge comes on for a minute, and it's not gameplay. And then they went to sports again. Okay, EA, I don't think you know how to pace a conference at all. Golly, that was bad. Mirror's Edge is so anticipated. Come on, you can show more than that, especially since it's supposed to be coming out relatively soon. Ugh, such a missed opportunity there. And yeah, they went more sports, more sports. And then, of course, they ended the show with Star Wars Battlefront, okay? Now, I'm gonna talk about this real quick just so I can get this out of the way before I actually went into my impressions of this. I am very pissed off about the Star Wars Battlefront, okay? I hate it. Mostly because it's not a Star Wars Battlefront game. I grew up with Battlefront 2 for the PS2, and I played a lot of Battlefront 1 as well. Battlefront 2, the whole point of those games is they were all-out warfare. They were all about the maps. They were all about instant action, and they were about multiplayer, more couch multiplayer. And EA has thought that Battlefront is in no way about any of that and is instead, for some reason, mission-based, which was not at all part of Battlefront. And also no maps, also no prequel maps, even though those have a lot more variety than the maps from the 4th, 5th, and 6th movies. And no space battles. The game is literally... I almost wanted to say it was Battlefield with a Star Wars skin, but I think it's actually almost more adequate to call this a first-person version of Star Wars Rogue Squadron. That's what this is. It's not Battlefront, okay? For someone that grew up with Battlefront, this is not at all Battlefront. It's a Star Wars game, that much is true, but it is not Battlefront. It is in no way should be associated with the first two games. If you completely separate it from them, fine. But to call it a Battlefront game just is wrong. That aside, there were two instances in E3 that Battlefront was shown at the conferences. I'll admit the EA one, I was not impressed at all. I thought it looked crappy. I felt like they used Hoth just as an excuse just to hide the bad textures. It looked ugly. And I thought the character models looked seriously like they came from the Wii. It looked bad. Okay. That was the EA version though. So we'll get into the second showing later. I was not impressed. I thought Battlefront, I looked at it for like a minute and I was like, oh my gosh, they really did tank hard. And yet everyone else was like, oh, this looks so fun. I'm like, how? How does this look fun to you? Like, no offense, but I looked at it and I was like, I don't understand. Why? Why would they do this? Why would they do this? I mean, I'm sorry to straight up insult this game, but they already insulted the games I loved by making this way. So, back at you, I guess. But, well, it showed up again later, and I will admit my opinion changed when that showed up, and we'll talk about that when we get to that. Okay, but that was EA. Overall grade, they get a D+. I'd give them a C-. I would give them a D+ or even a lower score if it weren't for Unravel. I think Unravel literally saved the whole conference from being a complete bomb. But everything else, the pacing was wrong. They focused way too much on the wrong things. And it felt like the sports was just filler. Like it's like, well, we don't have anything else to show. But then the problem was they went well over their time limit. So it's like you really could have cut the sports down. Come on. Um, yeah, Unravel is really what made the conference okay, like passable. It really did. Everything else about it was awkward, bad paced, just not good. Sorry, it wasn't good. I think I actually am going to give it a D plus just because Star Wars Battlefront did nothing for me. D plus. So translating that to number score, let's give that a 4. I'll give it a 4. Yeah. All right. Now for what was honestly like I'd say arguably this was the biggest surprise of E3, this conference. And I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, this conference wasn't that good." It's like actually for a lot of reasons, maybe not particularly the games that people were interested in, but for a lot of reasons, this conference was great. And this was Ubisoft. They started with a big one, South Park 2, the sequel to The Stick of Truth. And it's, what is it? The Fractured but Whole. Yeah. I'm not a South Park fan, at least as far as the humor goes. I'm not into the TV show, but I know South Park Stick of Truth was a great game. I know this won't be any exception. The reason it was big, though, is because people didn't think there was going to be another South Park game. They kind of said they weren't going to make another one, and then lo and behold, bam, there we go. Got another South Park game. That was good. That was really good. Everyone's like, oh, that was, that was a nice surprise to start the conference. Of course, Aisha Tyler was there. She's the host. She's the peppy host. Honestly, I don't actually mind her that much because at least he has energy to her, which is more than I can say for most of the EA presenters, half the Microsoft, and heck, even Sony presenters. I mean, honestly, actually Sony had a little bit of energy this year, but again, we'll get into that. But she has a lot of energy, and I can't actually hate that. But it did totally feel like a bunch of parents trying to be cool in front of their kids kind of thing, and I thought that was a little bit silly. Then my favorite part one of my two favorite parts of Ubisoft. They showed this new IP of a game called For Honor. It's literally Dynasty Warriors, but without being overpowered. Like you're a knight or a samurai, and they all mix in Vikings, and they just all out warfare, and you're one of them, and you're taking out enemies, and that's really it. There's multiplayer co-op to it. There's multiplayer competitive. You can jump into the fights and stuff like that. You can go one-on-one. There's actually intuitiveness to parrying and stuff like that, and the sword fighting. It's like this is the kind of game that people have always wanted and are finally getting. This is a really cool idea, and it's third person, which I love. I'm freaking stoked. That game looks great. Check out For Honor. I mean that's really all there is to it. It's just you get to straight up be a knight in the middle of battle, and in all the best ways you could possibly hope for. Can't complain about that. And the guy that presented it, man, he was a stud. Anyway, going on to the crew. The crew got an expansion called Wild Run. I don't know many people that play the crew anymore anyway, but oh well. I actually am still a little bit interested in the crew. If the price could drop a little more, maybe down to like $20, I'd actually pick it up. Then they also had a Trials Fusion expansion. Now, to be fair, up to all this point, they actually, well, I guess not with South Park, but with For Honor, they showed gameplay. Trials Fusion, they literally just showed this cutscene of a cat riding on a unicorn with fire coming out of its nostrils, and that was literally the whole trailer. It was weird, it was silly, but what does that translate to Trials Fusion? I don't understand. But it was an expansion. And then the beginning of the many Tom Clancy things that they had to show at this Ubisoft conference. First was The Division, and they finally showed gameplay. Thank you. They showed some PvP stuff. They showed that you can kind of betray anyone. They also showed that they don't exactly know how gamers talk to each other when they're using voice chat, but Ubisoft's always done that. A lot of, gotta get the loot. Sounded kind of stupid. But it looks interesting. I am interested purely in the fact that it is a loot shooter. I mean, I'm huge into Destiny. That's a loot shooter. I'm intrigued with The Division. I don't think I'm going to buy it when it comes out, but I'm intrigued. Then the conference kind of took a turn for the worse for a little bit. Making sure I'm not missing anything here. Yeah, it kind of took a turn for the worse for a little bit. It got awkward. This is the part where it always gets awkward. What game do they have to talk about every year? That's not Assassin's Creed. Just Dance. Yeah, they brought out the pop singer who didn't have autotune, so he sounded horrible, and honestly, everyone agreed with me in that regard. I don't even remember exactly who was it. Jason Derulo? Is that who it was? I don't even know. I'm not into the pop scene at all. Uh, but he sounded horrible, and he tried to get Aisha to dance with, come up on stage and dance, and she wasn't having any of it, and that was weird. There was also this thing where Aisha, like before it, Aisha sat down with this guy dressed up as the Assassin's Creed Syndicate protagonist, and she tried to make a meme. That was weird. Uh, but then they went back into it with Rainbow Six Siege, and Rainbow Six Siege. I actually got a lot more interested in it with this because I was not really looking forward to Rainbow Six Siege. This looked pretty cool. They showed gameplay. They showed how it worked more. They showed more game modes and stuff like that. What was it, Tarot Hunt or whatever? Uh, it looked pretty sweet and it looked solid. I'm definitely getting that on Xbox One just because the Xbox One I do think is a better system than the PS4 as far as uh, party play and voice chat communications because it has more options. It has the in-game chat. It has the party system, and then it also has Skype as well. Uh, so that is interesting to me. Rainbow Six Siege. I mean, it's a cool concept. Um, they talked about Assassin's Creed Syndicate. And even Ubisoft didn't show any gameplay. They don't need to, because we all know it's freaking Assassin's Creed. I mean, what else are you going to expect from it? It's just another entry in the series. Honestly, the only one you need to play is 4. Got it? If you haven't played 4, go play 4. If you still play the series, just stop. It's not worth your time. And it's in Europe again. I mean, what a surprise. I mean, to its credit, I mean, it won't be broken this time, maybe, like Unity was, but it's nothing new. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I know people are into the series, but a lot of people are just so tired of it. So tired of it. They also showed, what was it? Anno 2205, city building game. I know they've had previous entries in the Anno series. It's a city builder. And this one is like futuristic, and you can actually go outside of the planet to other parts of the solar system. That's cool. I'm not really into the city builder scene, but I've heard Anno games are pretty solid, so that is good. And then the last two things, and this was my other favorite thing aside from For Honor, was Trackmania. Trackmania Turbo is coming to PS4 and Xbox One. I played the Trackmania series like 6 years ago on the PC. It's always been a PC exclusive thing, and the whole point of the game is it's a racing game where you just build your tracks and go. And there's tons of customization options. That's what it's all about is the customization. There's a verticality to it. There's there's a lot of going upside down, a lot of and combined with the physics makes it pretty difficult. It's about beating your best times. Literally, you can race up against like 10 of your ghosts at once, which is really cool. I mean, I like Trackmania, and I kind of stopped playing it because I didn't have a computer that could really play it anymore. And then I kind of forgot about it, and then they announced it, and I was like, oh, shoot, I remember this game. It was so good. And then they showed gameplay of it, and it's like, that's exactly what I remember, and it's awesome, and I want to go back to it. And it's also got VR, too, which is, I can only assume, going to make every single person who plays it lose their lunch. But, I mean, who needs a roller coaster anymore, right? I mean, just play that game in VR, and you'll get all the thrills you need, except for the feeling of the wind. I mean, I gotta stand in front of a fan while you do it. It'll feel just like a roller coaster, probably. And then last but not least, but I'm not excited for it. But another Tom Clancy game, the third one, Ghost Recon Wildlands. I'm not the biggest fan of the Ghost Recon games, but I know a lot of people are, so that was cool. They brought that back. I don't think Ghost Recon has surfaced in a while. And they showed that the open world aspect of that, how it's very much focused on player choice and all that stuff, whatever that means. And it was pretty cool. I mean, I'm not into Ghost Recon, but I'm sure that people are into those games will really enjoy that game and are looking forward to it. Overall, Ubisoft did great. Aside from that stupid awkward moment with Just Dance, which we all kind of knew was coming anyway, They were pretty much on point the whole conference. They did really well. They didn't linger on the career trials for very long, their expansions. Even Assassin's Creed Syndicate, they showed the cinematic trailer and then they moved on. And it wasn't too bad. Um, they focused a lot on For Honor and a lot on Rainbow Six Siege and a fair amount on Trackmania Turbo too. And it's like those are the games we're actually looking forward to. Like those are interesting to us. I mean, Rainbow Six Siege, it's big IP, but like a game like For Honor and Trackmania, which we've never seen before, that's great. Show us that, please. Ubisoft did way, way better this year. The only thing I can other thing I could really complain about, and I mean I shouldn't, but it is just a little sad not to see it this year because it's been the first time in I want to say like 4 years that they haven't appeared. Is there wasn't an UbiArt game, and UbiArt, if you don't know who they are, they made Rayman Origins, Rayman Legends, Child of Light, and Valiant Hearts Great War. All amazing games. Like they have a perfect track record thus far, and they didn't show anything from them this conference, which I was a little bummed to see, but I can't say what I saw was bad or anything. It was, for the most part, really, really good. Ubisoft, and they did the thing that Microsoft didn't and showed lots and lots of gameplay for the things that actually mattered, which was good. So I think I can say Ubisoft gets the same score as Microsoft with the B+. I think the only reason they didn't get an A- is because of the awkward moments, really. They did pretty good. And I guess that would translate to an 8.5, 9 out of 10. Not bad, Ubisoft. It was very, very good, actually. I think I'd say that's one of your best conferences you've had in many, many years. Where do I even begin with this one? Actually, I know exactly where I want to begin, but Sony. It's Sony time. So, Microsoft set the bar pretty high. When they announced their backwards compatibility, they showed their HoloLens thing. I mean, and who knows when the HoloLens is even kind of come out, so that wasn't really as big of a deal. But they showed all these amazing games, and they showed, and again, the backwards compatibility. That was like, oh my gosh, that's a game changer, right? What could Sony possibly have up their sleeves that is going to blow us away, that's going to help them top Microsoft? I mean, and me, I'm not of the mindset that either one needs to top either. I have both systems. I just love games. I'm not really console wars are stupid. They're pointless and retarded. But like, what is Sony gonna do to measure up and not disappoint compared to the other conferences? And I was just like, I'm like, well, there's only one thing I want, and I've wanted it for ever since its prequel the game before it came out in 2005. And it's called The Last Guardian. They've never shown it. It's always a joke that they'll show it, but they never do. And then I see that feather fall. I was just like, oh my god. And then they showed The Last Guardian. It freaking lives. I do want to say right now to anyone who follows me on Twitter, I really apologize for everything I tweeted during that during that presentation. I'm pretty sure I had a brain aneurysm. I freaked. There is no game at all I anticipate more than that. Not even close. And I didn't even actually, I was freaking out so much I barely even paid attention to the game. I went back and watched the trailer later, and it looks like a Shadow of the Colossus / Eco game. It totally is. It's exactly the same thing. People aren't impressed by that because they don't really understand what that kind of game is. And I understand that, there's a completely different aspect of gaming that really can't be summed up in the usual areas that those games cover. And it does better than anything else. I can't even say it does atmosphere the best. There's just a certain kind of emotion that Team Eco tackles that no other game does better, and this one looks like it's going to fill that gap perfectly. And honestly, the thing that made me laugh the most is I don't even think they improved the graphics, and it still looks fantastic. Like, it still looks like a PS4 game. Now, granted, from what I heard later is that Sony did say the original PS3 trailer was scaled up. but now they have made the actual gameplay graphics measured up to that scaled up trailer. Good on them. Good on them. And the whole reason they didn't release it on PS3, as has now come out in the coming the later 24 hours, is because it couldn't meet the vision that they wanted on PS3, so they moved it over to PS4. Makes sense, okay? I understand that. I just wish it wouldn't have taken so long, but it's coming in 2016. Oh, and they showed gameplay, and it was beautiful. And then they went straight on to a new game from Guerrilla Games, the guys who make Killzone, and it's like, well, they're going to be here. We're going to probably see a new Killzone. No, they showed this game called Horizon Zero Dawn. That game was awesome. You play as like this bow huntress, and she's in she's like robot dinosaurs. I'm not kidding you. It's freaking robot dinosaurs, and she hunts them and stuff like that. And it's like a third-person action RPG. Freaking sweet. Go check out the trailer for that. I don't even really know how to describe that game too much. It was just sweet. It was so freaking cool. And then they moved on to more awesome stuff like Street Fighter V. They showed what is it? They showed the new Hitman game from Square Enix. They showed just a brief cinematic trailer of that. That was the first time they didn't show Street Fighter V they didn't show gameplay either. Well, I guess they kind of did. But Hitman they didn't show gameplay, but they didn't linger on it. Street Fighter V they just said, hey, there's 2 new characters. By the way, it's still PS4 and PC exclusive. And then they went over to what is it? They went over to a couple indie games. Let me see, which ones were they? Oh my gosh, what were they called? One was called like Firewatch or whatever. Actually, I think that might have actually been a little bit later. But it was like humorous, and it was an interesting little game. It was like first person, and it's an exploration-based game. That looked fun. Then they also showed a gameplay demonstration, finally, of No Man's Sky. And we learned a little bit more about it, about the exploration, and we learned about the size of the game, and holy shoot. Now, granted, it's procedurally generated, so I'm wondering if, yes, they can say that that's got the size and scope of that, but are there really going to be that many different things that it can procedurally generate, and really that many different looking planets it can come up with? That's my biggest question. Maybe not. But the thing that irritated me about the No Man's Sky presentation had nothing to do with No Man's Sky itself. It had to do with the reaction of it. And I'm just going to say this right now to everyone who was like, what's the point of this game? Bad. Smacks you. You are the problem. You are the problem. Do you not understand that a game like this is exactly what we need? Because I'm sick and tired of getting games where it throws a 10-minute tutorial in my face because it thinks I'm stupid. And you are part of the problem when you say, what's the point of this game? It's an exploration game. You drop in, you do your thing. That's all there is to it. There doesn't need to be more to it. There might be many objectives here and there. I mean, you can shoot things. They show that you can do that and stuff like that, a little bit. But it's exploration. You just explore. What's so hard to get about that? That's it. Gal. And it's awesome. Goodness. Media Molecule, they showed up, and it was nothing to do with Little Big Planet or Tearaway. They actually showed this game called Dreams, which looked very strange. It was all about, like, experimenting lucid dreams. I don't know. Media Molecule likes to be very experimental. I'll let them do their thing. I'm going to look at it when it comes out. It was very weird. How do I even describe it? It was like they tried to do, like, a whole face sculpting thing with it, and you'd go into dreams, and it was sometimes scary, sometimes pleasant, sometimes just weird. I mean, I don't even know really what to describe what the game was like, because it didn't really actually explain gameplay at all. And Destiny showed up, too, and they showed Taken King, and I honestly didn't want them to show up, because I knew Bungie was doing their own little thing on Tuesday, and they showed a little bit about the Taken King. They were brief about it, though, and they made it look really cool. They actually got some people that aren't into Destiny and were like, oh, this actually looks really sweet. But the biggest thing about it is they announced a Legendary Edition. Thank goodness, Destiny needed that. You can get Destiny, the first 2 DLC packs, and the expansion all together on one disc for $60. You can only get the Taken King standalone if you have all of the other 3 already, and it's $40 for the digital edition. Yeah, and then there's also a collector's edition that was like $80 or something like that. That came with other things too. So that was cool. Then they showed a bunch of Devolver Digital indie titles. There was a whole bundle of them all. None of them really caught my eye too much, but they were interesting. But I mean, they were still riding off the coattails of The Last Guardian, tons of amazing games. And then they showed this game called World of Final Fantasy, which was like mostly focused on for kids because it was like chibi and stuff like that. That's cute. And then Sony nuked the entire state of California. They nuked the planet. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yeah. They how do I even so they showed the cityscape thing, zoomed in, and it's, oh hey, hey, that looks familiar. I've seen that before. And then they, they're going kind of through the city a little bit, and then they showed this character walking, and you see the handle come into the light, and then it starts zooming down, and you see that all too familiar shape of the Buster Sword, and it's like, oh, everybody just world exploded. The world freaking exploded. People that don't even like Final Fantasy were exploded. It was the biggest thing. It was massive. Massive. That and Last Guardian, freaking massive. People have wanted this, but they never actually thought it was going to happen. Especially when last year Sony did the dick move and went, "Hey, guess what? Final Fantasy VII is coming to PS4, but it's just the PC port of the PS1 game." Everyone's just like, "Oh, dick move." And it's like, okay, well that was at PlayStation Experience, I believe, actually. And it's like, okay, so they don't care. No, they do. But let's just throw one more bomb in there, shall we? I mean, it's Sony's already on a roll. Why not just keep that ball rolling? And they talked about this certain game that came out for the Dreamcast, and it was a big hit. And it was supposed to have several more games, and it never did. And they brought out the man himself, Yu Suzuki, and they said, "We're going to count down the Kickstarter. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shenmue 3 Kickstarter is now open." Anyone who wasn't already pissing themselves over Last Guardian, wasn't already pissing themselves over Final Fantasy VII, that left maybe 10 people ever, was pissing themselves over this. Shenmue 3 Kickstarter, and if you don't think everyone was excited about it, it funded $2 million in 9 hours. And on top of that, as far as I know, the Kickstarter isn't actually even funding the game. It's mostly to generate hype, and it worked. Shenmue freaking 3. Another one that people have literally just joked about it popping up at E3, but never heard any mention of it. Now, granted, the Final Fantasy VII Remake and the Shenmue 3 aren't probably coming for at least 2 years, either of them. Final Fantasy VII might appear in 2016, but I doubt it. Shenmue 3, I would say 2017, even 2018. Probably not for a while. But Shenmue 3, it's kind of a big deal. Okay, and then, of course, riding off of the Shenmue 3 coattails, they quickly snuck in some Project Morpheus little stuff in PlayStation Vue, and nobody cared because everyone was already so freaking busy freaking out. And then they also showed some Batman Arkham Knight, and everyone got really confused because they're like, wait a minute, is Batman Arkham Knight first person now? And no, I'm pretty sure that was just the opening cutscene of the game or something like that. It was just, Batman Arkham Knight cutscene, cool. Showing some more of that. They also showed Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and it wasn't any better than what Ubisoft showed. I guess they showed that there was some gameplay of the female protagonist. Congratulations, Ubisoft, you figured out how to model female assassins. That joke never gets old. But then they did something, and okay, hate it all you want, this is a huge thing for Sony. Call of Duty Black Ops 3, Sony got the exclusive content this time. We were all wondering where the heck was Call of Duty from Microsoft's conference. Well, here it was. And they actually didn't linger on it too long, which is okay. So if you didn't like the game, it wasn't that bad. And for the millions of people who do, they were freaking out, and it was awesome. And Sony got the rights, and that's as if their system wasn't already killing the freaking market. Yeah, it just got a little bit better. And then let me see, I'm trying to think. Okay, they only had 3 other things. I say only, as if this wasn't enough. They could have literally ended it after Shenmue 3, and everyone would have been like, this is the best conference ever. Then they showed Disney Infinity 3, Star Wars Edition, This is all the Star Wars stuff, and the guy came up. He was super enthusiastic. People were like, "Oh, that's cool." And then they showed Battlefront, and remember how I said in the EA conference they showed it again later that I thought was going to be, I thought it was slightly better. I'll admit they improved. They stepped it up in this one. The environment they picked this time was Tatooine. It looked better. I could actually see textures. It looked a lot more fluid, a lot prettier. The frame rate was better. It looked nicer. It actually looked like, okay, yeah, this looks like a good game, like a good looking game. I'm still pissed about the mechanics and the gameplay issues that aren't going to be fixed because that's just how they're deciding to make the game. But that aside, it looks good. And yeah, they showed off like a survival mode and stuff like that. The character models still bug me though. The face models, I don't know, something about that just still irks me. It looks weird. It looks kind of crappy. And then they ended with, of course, what else would they end with? Naughty Dog, Uncharted 4. And it was kind of funny because they actually messed up, which tends to happen for some reason every single time they talk about Uncharted 4. Because there was the thing where he fell through the level in PlayStation Experience. That was kind of funny. But no one cares because, aside from the glitch, it's freaking Uncharted 4 and it looks amazing. But then this time they showed the opening cutscene when you got to finally see Sullivan. Finally, we've got to see him. And then I guess the guy went AFK or something like that, because as soon as the gameplay started, Drake just stood there for like 12 seconds, and then the cutscene repeated. And it started over again, and then the gameplay went off, and it was like, oh, okay. I mean, aside from that, if you're really going to have to nitpick and say, oh, 30th conference sucked, they screwed up Uncharted, blah, 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 just seriously. I mean, they freaking killed it, okay? Sony was amazing. My goodness, those bombshells just, oh. If I want to be straight up biased, I'm seriously going to just say A+, because Last Guardian. I will admit there were some things that it's like, well, you're missing this. There was no Rhyme, there was no Abzu, there was no games like that. And I know that'll be later in the week they might talk about those. And there was a couple things I was like, okay. I mean, the PlayStation View, they talked about that actually they talked about TV more than Xbox did, and Microsoft did. Shocker. But aside from that, I mean, it wasn't too bad. I mean, it wasn't too bad. The bad things they showed, there just wasn't, like, none of it was really offensive. And any time they tried to show something that was bad, they had just dropped the biggest thing ever, right before it. So no one cared. I'm gonna give Sony an A. They did 3 amazing titles, each one on their own respectively would have made an E3 conference massive, but they did all 3. And on top of that, showed a bunch of other great stuff. Like, holy crap, what was it? The Horizon Zero Dawn? That game looks awesome, and I know everyone's excited for that one. That was really cool. I mean, and there was other things they showed that were really cool too. No Man's Sky, I'm so hyped for that. That was another thing that kind of annoyed me. They still didn't give a release date for No Man's Sky though. That, if I'm gonna nitpick, was probably the thing that irritated me the most. It's like, oh my gosh, still no release date? I was expecting at least that at this conference, but for all the things I did not expect, I'm happily gonna take it. And yeah, that was it. Sony ended the night huge. And honestly, I almost wish E3 would have ended there. Going on to Nintendo. Nintendo. Now, I have my beefs with Nintendo as of late. Like, I think they make some poor decisions and stuff like that. And honestly, they have a lot of good games to bring to E3. The problem was they left a few of them out of their actual presentation, such as Freedom Planet and Fatal Frame. They never talked about those in the presentation. Those would have been kind of good to see, especially Freedom Planet. I mean, that's a game people are intrigued in. But they never talked about it. They started with Star Fox, and that was the one I wanted the most. I love Star Fox. I was excited to see that. Granted, there was like some things in it I was like, what? Okay, this is weird. But that aside, Star Fox, it's great, and it's developed by Platinum Games, which is also a big deal, and apparently Hideki Kamiya is actually part of this. Big deal. it's going to be good. I mean, Platinum Games isn't always perfect, but if it's Hideki Kamiya at the helm, then it typically is. Um, or it's up there. It's really, really, really good. So that was cool. Trying to think, making sure I don't miss anything else before I go into that. Okay, and then they showed what was it? They showed what was this Amiibo slash Skylanders thing. This was a trend I hated. Okay, they showed Amiibo slash Skylanders. Okay, cool. You can play as Donkey Kong and Bowser in Skylanders now. Cool. Zelda Four Swords and Hyrule Warriors for 3DS got shown up. Well, it wasn't Zelda's Four Swords. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. It's a successor to Zelda Four Swords called Triforce Heroes, where you only play with 3 this time, and it has the graphic style of A Link Between Worlds, but Four Sword style. That's okay. Hyrule Warriors 3DS. That's okay. No Zelda U. Okay. Now I understand that it wasn't supposed to be there, but the only thing that kind of is weird to me is like Zelda U. That's like your big, big, big game. You were actually spending that development time that could have been spent in Zelda U on these games that nobody asked for. The Zelda Four Swords thing, I think people are a little excited about, but Hyrule Warriors for 3DS, I don't think anybody really wanted. I mean, because the Wii U game's fine. It didn't really need a handheld edition. Okay, Nintendo. Then they went full on anime and they showed like Fire Emblem and they showed like the what was it Fire Emblem. They showed a Fire Emblem. I'm kind of sick of Fire Emblem mostly because I feel like that's almost the IP that Nintendo cares about most at this point. Like it's almost the face of Nintendo now, and it is getting a little annoying to me. But for those who love Fire Emblem, that's cool. They also showed Shin Megami Tensei X Fire Emblem, and that looks just freaking stupid to me. But that's because I'm not a otaku weeaboo guy who's into the dating girls because it doesn't look like Fire Emblem at all. It doesn't look like there's any RPG elements. It looks like it's straight up a dating simulator, I swear. That's just me though. And they also showed what was it? Yokai Watch was in there somewhere too. I could be getting this so out of order, but I just while I'm thinking of the games like that, there was Yokai Watch was in there, and that's cool. Apparently, Yokai Watch is a big thing over in Japan. They're bringing it west. Interesting. I'll check it out. Then they had talked about Xenoblade Chronicles X, and they got its North American release date, which is until the end of the year. Holy crap! I know a lot of people love Xenoblade, so that's a big deal. But I mean, no, we already know everything about Chronicles X at this point. It's just, we got the release date really. Then they showed. They showed. This was like offensive. Not as much to me, but to a lot of people. Metroid Prime Federation Force, where you don't get to play as Samus at all for the 3DS. The hell? And then like Metroid Prime, like the Blast Ball game or whatever, which is like soccer with. Why? People have been clamoring for a Metroid Prime, and I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying that this is their way of saying we have Metroid Prime 4 in the works, or whatever next is in the series in the works. We're just giving you this to hold you over because we're very much aware of it. Like I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they're doing that. I mean, that's more than can be said for the F-Zero series right now, but it still felt like a big smack in the face. Like, we don't actually have the game, we just have a spin-off. And that's kind of what this whole conference was. It was just spin-offs of the games that people actually wanted. Spin-off Zelda, spin-off Metroid Prime, and next is spin-off Animal Crossing. I personally don't like the handheld Animal Crossings. Sue me. I don't like New Leaf. Well, I gotta say didn't really like Wild World that much, but I don't like New Leaf. I feel like it overcomplicated Animal Crossing and just got it. I mean, I can't say overcomplicated. It's still a simple game, but it's just like it's too much. Too much to time manage. I feel like the console versions do it better, and they have a much better aesthetic. And I wanted Animal Crossing Wii U. We got Animal Crossing Wii U. Oh, but it was like a party game with like amiibo. And then they also showed what was it? The Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer. That's cute. It's kind of like The Sims kind of a thing, but with Animal Crossing characters. That I'm actually very interested in. But the Animal Crossing party game. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then it's like, oh, it's all about amiibo. Frick. More peripherals, more amiibo, as if we don't already have enough of that. Um, and then probably my favorite surprise of the whole conference was Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. I'm not a huge fan of the Mario and Luigi RPGs, but I love the Paper Mario RPGs, and I know they're sort of similar, but I just like the Paper Mario aesthetic better, and this is kind of a crossover of the two. But it seems to be more set in the Mario and Luigi universe, so it's like, I mean, I could get into it. I mean, I'll definitely check it out, but it was a very nice surprise, because, gosh, Sticker Star was underwhelming, and it's good to see that they're going to try to fix it this time. And it looks like this will be a lot better. Then they also talked about more of Yoshi's Woolly World, as if we didn't already see enough of that. I don't even know if they mentioned a release date for it. And then they talked about its amiibo support. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. And then Mario Tennis for Wii U. That was cool. I love the Mario Tennis game. It's my favorite Mario sports title. I like it more than Super Mario Strikers and Mario Golf. Mario Tennis is great. I'm glad to see it back. It hasn't been there since what, the GameCube? Like, was it Power Tour or whatever? That's cool. And then they talked about Mario Maker, which honestly I thought they did a fine job of talking about Mario Maker at the Nintendo World Championships. We all know what Mario Maker is, and then they lingered on it for 20 minutes. Golly, stop. I get it. It's Mario Maker, but come on, this doesn't need a freaking 20-minute block, especially considering your directs aren't even an hour. And then it stopped. And that was the end. Now I get it. Nintendo's E3 last year was pretty dang good. They had Smash Bros. In it and whatnot. I mean, they've kind of exhausted an entry from all of their best IPs now. Donkey Kong has had Tropical Freeze not too long ago. Pikmin 3 not too long ago. Smash Bros. Not too long ago. Mario Kart 8 not too long ago. And then they've had, Super Mario 3D World and whatnot, which, honestly, I wish they'd go back to an old direction of Super Mario, but that's just me. I mean, all that. And they still haven't done Zelda. And I get that they did Star Fox. Great, okay? They didn't really have anything else to show. And I think I do want to say they kind of bit the bullet. And they actually had fun with the conference. It was kind of cute. They kind of had this whole thing going on with, like, the Muppet versions of Reggie and Iwata and Miyamoto. And I thought they were having fun with it. It was entertaining. But as far as the presentation went, it wasn't that good. It just wasn't that good. It was mostly release dates for games we already knew about, or trailers for games we already knew about, and then kind of punch-in-the-face spin-offs for games that we actually wanted rather than the spin-off, and then Star Fox and Mario Maker. That was it. I mean, there's other games that Nintendo has at E3 that they didn't show that were new, and it was like, oh, well, like I would have much rather have seen than half of this stuff. I would have much rather seen, what was it, Freedom Planet. Much would have rather seen that. And no, they didn't even mention it. They didn't even mention Zelda U at all. They didn't even talk about it. They didn't even say, it's coming, more to talk about it soon. It's just, and in fact, it was kind of silly. I actually thought this was really stupid. It was almost as if they were trying to make Zelda into like a Last Guardian after this. They went, don't worry, Zelda U is still in development after the conference. I was like, is there any doubt? Duh, of course it is. Stop that. It was just like, I don't think anyone was doubting that, but it's like, I could have at least seen it. Okay. I know people are going to get pissed because, like, well, they did it good. They did good. I give them credit for making making lemonade out of lemons. They did the best they could with what they had. And to that, I give Nintendo credit. I expected a little bit more, just a little bit more than what they gave. But they gave me Star Fox, and that was what I wanted the most. I'm okay with that. I mean, the spin-offs just kind of were irritating. That was all. That was probably the worst thing about the conference. And then the fact that they didn't show a lot of new stuff. They really didn't. And it was a very lackluster conference. It was one of Nintendo's worst in a while. And for that, I'd give it a C. I think I'd give it a C. I'd say it's better than EA's, but I'll give it a C. It wasn't terrible. A 5 out of 10. Because I mean, there wasn't really anything memorable from it. I mean, aside from the puppets and stuff like that. But I mean, as far as the games are concerned, there wasn't really anything memorable. Even Star Fox kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. I mean, did you look at the way Fox looks? He looks freaking creepy. Like, he looks scary. And that whole R-Wing walking thing, I'm just going to talk about this for a second. The whole R-Wing walking thing, it was like, did you really do this as an excuse not to let them get out of their R-Wings at all? I actually didn't mind the walking segments in Assault. They were slower paced, and there is a way to fix that, but I thought they were fine. Like, Assault was a great game, okay? Star Fox Assault. And the walking segments were not bad. They really weren't. They were just a little slower paced than the flying segments. And the fact that you're making your R-Wing walk to avoid the characters walking, that was a little bit stupid. That aside, though, I'm still super excited for the game. And that was Nintendo. It's okay, though. We have the best for last. And when I mean best, I actually mean worst. Okay, so Square Enix freaking sucked. That's all I can say to start. They sucked. They didn't shut up. They explained everything with just words. They made their best games look as boring as possible. They showed Just Cause 3, and they just showed explosions, and they made it look boring. They showed more Tomb Raider, which was, I believe, the exact same trailer, or almost the exact same trailer we got from the Xbox conference, the Microsoft conference. They showed the exact Final Fantasy VII Remake trailer from Sony's conference, which was super brief and just a tease in theirs. And it's like, it was almost as if Square Enix wasn't aware that these things were getting shown by the other conferences. That's what it felt like. It's like, oh wait, Sony showed that. Well, I guess we should show it too, but we don't have another trailer. Maybe we can talk about it for 10 minutes and then people will get excited. Gosh. And Kingdom Hearts 3, they showed gameplay footage of that. That was really the only reason to go to this conference. Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm not the biggest into Kingdom Hearts. I mean, I'm super excited for it along with the rest of you, but I don't know. I didn't really grow up with Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. I still have actually yet to finish the games. So, I'm not as big into them, but dang, that's what everyone wanted, and it's great to see. Oh, this was weird. So, oh gosh, I should get it real quick. Where is it? There it is. Hold on. So they released or announced a sequel to the weirdest game they could have possibly announced a sequel for, and that was this, Nier. I mean, I don't even really think anyone liked this game. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't that good either. Like, I think the one thing I really loved about this game was the soundtrack. I think it's actually one of the best soundtracks in any game. But it was like, Nier? Really? A sequel for Nier? I mean, it's unexpected, and I'll take it if it's good, but okay. And then the developer came out, and he was dressed like a freaking demon from hell. Like, it was scary. And I get that he's like, I guess there's like a thing where he's like not supposed to show his face, and I understand that, but I mean, I'll admit there's some pretty funny memes made out of it. I even made a joke. I'm like, Square Enix, they dug up Hideo Kojima's dead body and stuck him in the suit of this guy in hopes that his ghost would somehow save their conference. It was weird. It was weird. Like this freaking weird face thing going. I can't even describe what the heck I was seeing. It was strange. But Nier, like, I don't even know if I can get over that. They also talked about a mobile Tomb Raider. They talked about a mobile Kingdom Hearts, and that was hilarious, though, because it was such a cock tease, because it was before Kingdom Hearts 3 got announced, and they said they were about to talk Kingdom Hearts, and this guy in the audience goes, yeah! And then they showed the mobile game, and it was just like, you are such a jerk. I'll admit I got a kick out of that, for the wrong reasons, but I got a kick out of it. And they also showed a new Star Ocean with a terrible title called Integrity and Faithfulness. Or Faithlessness. Ugh, that's a gross subtitle, but it's Star Ocean. Star Ocean games are pretty solid. I don't know if it's going to match up quite to as much as the old Star Oceans from the PS1 and PS2. I don't know if the series is quite as good anymore, but we'll see. They also talked about a Final Fantasy Portal app. And they also had this new studio called Tokyo RPG Factory. And it's an entire studio committed to making games like Bravely Default, like traditional JRPGs. This was probably the best news out of the conference, and they showed concept art for a thing called Project Setsuna, but that was it. Like they weren't able to show any more than that. And the worst part was is that game comes out next year, so you'd think they'd have more than concept art, but that's all they had. And that's cool though. I'm glad to see that they're actually going into making games that people have been really missing because true JRPGs have been pretty absent for a while. They really have been. And it's good to see that Square Enix is going back into that because that's what they were always best at. Um, they also showed some Deus Ex. That was cool. They showed Hitman as well. Um, and they had gameplay of Deus Ex, which was good. But again, on all these trailers, too much talking, too much explaining, too much prefacing, and too much not making the game exciting and not letting the game do its thing. Gosh, Square. The worst part is the only real games that were actually shown that we weren't expecting today were Nier 2 and the Star Ocean. Like everything else was a mobile thing. And then it was stuff we already knew about. And no Final Fantasy 15 either. As if that didn't go back into developmental hell. Square Enix tanked, man. That was bad. Like they made the games boring. They were terrible at presenting. The pacing was just abysmal. And there was no Unravel to save this conference. This was as if EA didn't have Unravel. Granted, I still think a lot of these games were more exciting than all the sports stuff that EA showed, but somehow Square Enix made it dull. I would give Square a D. Frickin' D. I think I give them like a 2, 3 out of 10. Dang, Square. Dang. I was really hoping for more. And I was surprised, too, because they got this whole conference block. You would think there was actually going to be a big surprise there, and there wasn't. There was nothing. It was very, very much as expected. That was a shame. It was by far the most expected conference out of all of them, even EA's. That's a disappointment. It really was. I was hoping for more. I was very much looking forward to Square's conference, and I was expecting lots of Kingdom Hearts. I wanted to see more about the Final Fantasy VII remake, and they just showed the trailer again. Oh well. Anyway, that's it for E3. Again, I'm not talking about PC Gamer because I was doing this whole video during the PC Gamer conference and through to the end. And also, I don't care about PC Gamer, frankly. I don't. I know that the conference, from what I saw from the conference, literally the whole conference was just like, PC Master Race, blah, blah, blah. We're going to talk about Valve peripherals and AMD stuff and the few PC exclusives that only PC Gamer elitists play. I don't care. But yeah, anyway, that's it. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed E3 as much as I did, because by Monday alone, I would say this is one of the best E3s I've ever seen. I'd say it's the best E3 I've ever been a part of. And I'm very excited for the games coming out the next few years. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.